Welcome to the BWI Live Show. I am Thomas Frank Carr. Still waiting on our special guest for today's show. We had to get going without him, but will be joining us shortly. Hope you're having a great night. Penn State made it easy on you to have a great night tonight with a 49-10 win over Purdue. I don't know who thought of 49 points would be, an acceptable number. I'm 2 for 2. Guys, the last 2 weeks, this has been really easy the last 2 weeks, by the way. That's why. The analysis, the film study, everything has been pretty clear. Hey, they should be able to do whatever they want in this game. It looked a lot different than I thought it was going to. That's the thing for me that I was surprised by, and then suddenly was not surprised whatsoever once I figured it out. I'm actually a little embarrassed that it took me a little bit to figure out what the plan was, given how much I've studied the this particular team and Andy Kotelnicki. If you remember, hold on one moment. We have to do some live stuff here. At the same time, the special guest is now being integrated into the show as we do this. Okay, so close your eyes and imagine Tyler Warren under center, taking the ball, running 49 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. Imagine him throwing the ball the week before for that would have been a big play to Katron Allen. Now I want you to think about all the other times Tyler Warren has been under center and all the things that they've done with him as a football player. That's the Andy Kotelnicki offense. Like, at this point in the season, I can just call it what it is. They're trying everything they can to get Tyler Warren the football. Yes, but the offense works really well. All of his ideas work really well with a quarterback under center that can run the ball the way that Tyler Warren did. Now, let me explain what I'm trying to say. In 2023, Penn State fans watched Illinois play Kansas, and they went, oh, wow, look at Kansas get shredding Illinois. Penn State should be able to the next week. Andy Kotelnicki was the offensive coordinator in that game. The Purdue head coach was the defensive coordinator. So fast forward 2 years, and here we are. That was the game plan. But here's the thing. Drew Allar's the quarterback. And just like in 2023, when I said, or 2022, whatever it was, and I said, I don't know, guys, Drew Allar's the quarterback. That's a very different game plan that Penn State cannot replicate. They tried some stuff. They tried every once in a while to do some of those things. Tonight, they just tried to replay that game plan the best they could. And when Beau Pribula was under center, you saw a touchdown. When you saw Tyler Warren under center, you saw a touchdown. When you saw Drew Allar under center, everyone went, ugh. Because just generally, when you're running an option football game plan and Drew Allar's your quarterback, it's just not going to function the same way. Again, this is not a disrespect for Drew Allar. This is not to say that Drew Allar needed to not play this game. It's just saying that was the game plan, and they tried to make it work and bridge the gap, and what they got was Tyler Warren gets 200 all-purpose yards, basically, and 2 touchdowns. Joining us now is our special guest, Nate Bauer of Blue White Illustrated. Did not go to Purdue. Greg Pickle there by himself, out in lovely West Lafayette, Indiana, and I'm super grateful then. That means I get a co-host here on the show. Of course, you in the chat are our co-host here on the Labatt Postgame Show. Want to get your thoughts? We're going to get to your comments here in just 1 second. But Nate, I laid out my opinion of what the plan was, what the offensive performance was, and why it looked and felt the way it was. Want to get your initial thoughts on this particular game.
Yeah, I missed all that, so I apologize. I'm sure it was very insightful. And honestly, I actually feel a bit overmatched here. This is like your wheelhouse. This is the X's and O's expertise, and I'm here to talk.
I shared my notes with you. I gave you the cheat sheet.
I'm here to talk about how I think Penn State is intentionally pushing Tyler Warren for Heisman.
Absolutely.
And arranging its game plan accordingly. Like, not that I think that that's a bad idea or that that's not a winning game plan and something that obviously they intended to do anyway, right? That's how you can beat Purdue. But at this point, I'm going with it. I'm all in on the conspiracy theory.
Yeah. So I think it's a happy coincidence that their best quarterback for this game plan was Tyler Warren. And that's how you get the situation where he runs the football. Just watch the way. This is what I said to start the show. When you watch Tyler Warren under center, whether it's last week and some of the plays he made in that game where he's running the football in the QB counter, and that should have been a touchdown to Katron Allen if he was actually a quarterback and could just lob the football. And then today, that was the exact same play, Nate. The only thing is, instead of throwing the football, the D end, they were reading the D end. The end stayed with him. And so that means Tyler Warren could run the football. Now, I mean, by the coverage went with Katron Allen. So then there was a big void up the middle. And then when you're getting number 40 for Purdue to chase and run out into the field, that's always a good thing if you're the opposing team. But there's a lot of layers to the run game and what happened there that I think also are from that game plan from 2023 Illinois, Kansas, where they were reading interior defenders. So normally on read option, Nate, you read the outside defender and or the end man on the line of scrimmage, whoever that is. What Nittany did in that game is what he did in this game, where they had very wide splits between the guard and the center or the guard and the tackle, and they were reading defensive tackles because the Illinois defense puts three guys in the middle, all in between the tackles, and makes it very hard to run the outside zone and the inside zone. So Kotelnicki's option game, what he did so well against Illinois was to read the interior defender, Johnny Newton at the time, who was a first-round draft pick, and just make him wrong all the time by running the opposite direction of where he went. Allar being the quarterback makes that more difficult, and why you saw some of those plays work really well and why you saw them run and throw the ball laterally in this game. So that's the Tyler Warren experience, why he's in this particular situation. We're going to shift here quickly to get an overview of the defense. What did you think of Abdul Carter in today's game?
I thought he got held.
Unbelievably egregious holding calls that weren't even called. The call that they gave against Amin Vanover, his player, that was Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter was the one that was held on that particular play.
Yeah, he just he's very obviously a disruptive player, and you got to do what you got to do, and it's almost reminiscent of conversations under like the Dom Brown Michigan make them throw the flag against the cornerbacks kind of deal, right? And honestly, obviously employed by Ohio State this year as well, right? Just make the officials make the call. And the reality for Abdul Carter, unfortunately for him, and something that James Franklin has brought up a couple of times, like, his stats are not what they would be. Not that he has to worry about that for the next level, right? Everybody's going to be able to see on film what he does. But yeah, it's kind of a shame for him. I made a joke in our running thread, like, you've got the broadcasters like, like probably should have been a hold. Abdul's probably not laughing about this right now.
Probably not.
Probably
at least
upset.
I'll tell you when they get more upset is when there are incentives built into their NIL clauses, where for every sack he gets $10,000 or something like that. Whew.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
there.
when we start. Because no, I mean, if this is trending towards the NFL, and a lot of this is feeling like it's trending towards the NFL, that's part of the conversation. And while we're here talking about Abdul Carter, let's get to our defensive player of the game. It's going to shock you who it is today, Nate. The defensive player of the game is brought to you by State College criminal defense attorney Matt McClenahan of McClenahan Law Firm. He's a Penn State alum. He emails, texts, or calls me and gives me his predictions for the game. So far, he and I have been pretty close in lockstep. I read his prediction. I was actually going to pull it up here just so everyone knows. Like, he's a super fan. He goes to all the games. He was giving me the strategy on when to be loud on third down and on defense during home games and home whiteout games. He said he was very glad that this was a road game. So his not so bold prediction, what did he have it here? I'm sorry, I'm trying to speed read and talk at the same time. Oh, he was super close. He said Tyler Warren will have a rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and a passing touchdown. Now, he almost got a lateral pass touchdown, except that Tyler Warren didn't do a great job following his blocks. He tried to outrun everybody on that throwback screen. And of course, Matt McClanahan of McClanahan Law Firm. If you ever need a defense attorney, hopefully you do not. But for more information, visit mattmlaw.com. Our defensive player of the game is Abdul Carter. 5 tackles to lead the Nittany Lions, even though he didn't play the full game. 2 tackles for loss. No sacks because of those holding. That's the part I thought was very shocking. Was I thought he at least got one of them. No sacks in this game. He's going to have an elite PFF grade, at least 5 pressures, no sacks.
Nittany got one, though. So that's a step in the right direction for him. Obviously, as he continues to come back. I think Keziah Izzard had one and Amin Vanover had one. So a couple, there were some sacks to be had. Look, Penn State defensively, some of this is just like labored, right?
Yeah.
Because Purdue is that bad. I think, and
you
so
are correct.
It's almost you got to find. Goodness, T. Frank, I respect you so much doing this immediately after the game every week, because it's such a time that's ripe for rash opinions in either direction. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, yeah, I think Penn State played pretty well. They could have done more things better for sure. Yeah. Anthony Ivy's drop, right? Like there were things that happened that Penn State could have done better. But on the whole, Purdue was just in a bad way. I felt bad for them more than the
first couple of drives, Nate, where throwaway on 3rd down was the best option for Hudson Card. That's a fully depressing thought, where Tony Rojas gets immediate pressure on a blitz. I'm super excited to see that one. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the replay of that one yet, but just a straight pressure. So he throws it away. And that one wasn't even like, oh, I'm going to get in close into like the player anywhere near him. And then the second drive, I think Abdul Carter got a pressure on that one, where they have to just have to kill the ball and live to see another day, even though the next play or the next drive for Penn State is a 10-play drive for a touchdown. So like you throw the ball away thinking, okay, we're going to like defer winning late till later because we lost this. And then you're down 14 points. And the only thing that was working for them was running the ball. And suddenly that doesn't become an option. KJ Johnson, I want to get your thoughts on this. KJ Johnson says, love the final score, but disappointing to see no production from the starting wideouts again. Minus the Wallace touchdown, backups with 2 big drops. Your thoughts on the receiver game, and then I'll give you my analysis of what I saw.
I don't know. I don't get it. I think that there were some opportunity. The thing that I have trouble differentiating, and you certainly can be a resource and help on this, is there are some things that it's so obvious who they're trying to get the ball to, right? Like, I'm watching on TV, right? But you can see that the Tyler Warren pass to Drew Allar back to him, right? That play is run for him to make that play. Yeah. There are passing plays to Drew that you don't know.
That's the traditional drop back game that you don't see on TV. All you see is the quarterback hold the ball and everyone thinks Drew Allar's afraid to throw.
Right. And so I don't know where he's intending to go with the ball. I don't know what the look is supposed to be. I didn't think he was under duress all that much. I think he had the opportunity to make those passes, and overwhelmingly the best option for him, the decision that he ended up making overwhelmingly was within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Right. Like, again, I mean, it's just kind of my recollection.
Yeah. Like that's what really frustrates me about this game plan. Now, 17 of 19 for 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, a passer rating in the college game, which I don't understand the passer rating in college football. Like, I'm used to the NFL one, which also doesn't make sense, but at least it's capped at 158.3. He has a passer rating of 250.8. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. He was good tonight, but there's 2 key factors here. Firstly, I came in this week saying Purdue plays 71% man coverage. They probably played 50% zone tonight. So they, in this game, pivoted. And this is the frustrating thing, is that teams seem to pivot against Penn State. Like, they played Oregon with that game plan, and that's, that Oregon got the score they got. Watching this game plan against other teams that weren't nearly as good as Penn State, and they're playing this aggressive man coverage, and they're trying to play basically 5 and 5. 5 in coverage, 5 at the line of scrimmage, and then play one-on-one football across the board. They didn't do any of that tonight. So Penn State's game plan was not geared towards beating zone coverage. Penn State runs a play called mesh, especially on third down, third and short. That is primarily a man beater, where you're expecting guys to run across the field, shallow crosses, everyone hits each other, somebody gets open, and if not, there's a guy over top of the ball for the completion, like sitting and waiting for the ball. It's designed, and people run it because it also works against zone, but because that's Penn State's go-to third down pass, Purdue was ready for it. So some of those plays were not ready. But Nate, all of the throws were within 5 yards because it was load up and shoot night, where he had 3 routes. There was a deep route, there was Tyler Warren, and a check down on a lot of the passes tonight. And I don't know right now if any of those guys were open, but I trust Drew Allar, the quarterback, that it probably wasn't a good look. And if there's only one guy running deep, that's easy to take away. If there's 3 guys running deep, that's where the Trey Wallace touchdown happens. You're running 3 players deep with a deep crosser to Tyler Warren, and then you're forcing those guys into conflict, and suddenly Allar rolls out of the pocket, and there's a big play for a touchdown. They just didn't go to that section of the game plan quick enough to generate explosive plays in the passing game because they wanted to run the Illinois game plan from 2023, and that was very frustrating to watch. For me, on this, obviously it was effective.
Yeah, I certainly can't disagree with that. A couple of things stood out to me. I thought that Trey almost gave up on that play.
Yeah.
it looked like he stopped the route, 20 yards up the field. Kind of like, oh, this is, I'm out of it. And then paused and kept going. And, that could have been a design. That could have been part of the play. But he easily, there was no defense for him. The corner and the safety obviously let him go. So it's just the idea of a downfield passing game, making contested catches, is something that doesn't exist for Penn State football. In terms of its offense, as far as I can tell, it's not there. I did think it was interesting, the looks that Beau had. Yeah. Right. The 2 other deep-ish. I think we can call both of those deep passes. Yeah. To Ivy and to Tyzier. Were drops. So,
he put it literally on the face mask of Tyzier Denmark. If Denmark wasn't wearing a visor, it would have been stuck in his grill as he ran for a touchdown. That was a pinpoint pass for sure.
I had the from The Hangover, in the face. I don't know. Obviously I'm following the in-game thread and seeing all of the reactions from Penn State fans, and none of them are particularly pleased with those happenings. But I do think there is an element of that group just has not had reasons, foundational successes to build on in a lot of ways. Right. The depth has not been in, right? Penn State's been, you asked the question earlier in the week about opportunities lost through the course of the season based on for your depth. And you just have to wonder if that happens against whatever, Bowling Green, right? If Bowling Green is a sizable win and those guys are in the game and you have your letdown from your second string guys, but they're able to bounce back from it and grow from it, rather than it happening on, November 16th, where, okay, now how do you build on that for the rest of the season? Right. There's only 2 more games to go. But I do think that it's something that Penn State wants to happen. They're going to have to be better. They cannot, Penn State cannot get, there was a quote during the broadcast, and I'm paraphrasing, but about Drew Allar telling the broadcast crew what a luxury it is to have targets of Tyler Warren, Nick Singleton, and Katron Allen. And it's like, hey,
I physically clenched when he said that, when they said
like, it's nice. That's a nice sentiment, but it's also just this glaring indictment of a future NFL quarterback, whenever that happens, not having the opportunity, right? I mean, it hasn't been consistent. It hasn't been there for most of the season.
Today's show, this postgame show, is the Labatt Postgame Show. Super excited to have them as our sponsor here for the show. When it's time to kick back and watch the game, grab a Pilsner that's as pristine as Happy Valley itself. Labatt Blue and Labatt Blue Light deliver unmatched taste that goes down smooth every single time. As a almost Canadian myself, growing up in the shadow of Lake Erie, I can tell you, Labatt is the way to go. Whether you're tailgating at the game with 107,000 fans, maybe you're out in Purdue and you're watching it with 14 fans, and most of those are Penn State fans. Whoever, wherever, however, whenever, you need Labatt Blue and Labatt Blue Light. Bleed blue and white. Drink blue and light. And by the way, if you want to say pristine and beautiful, find Labatt products at Big Valley Beverage, 7776 PA 655 in Reedsville. Big Valley, by the way, if you are in State College ever and you are spending like a lot of time here and you want to just go for a beautiful drive, go over Pine Grove Mountain, drive down into Reedsville, into Big Valley. It is beautiful. Like, it's just one valley over from Happy Valley. Please drink responsibly. Labatt, USA, Buffalo, New York. There was a comment here from Gavin C. Beau had no problem second-guessing deep balls. It's just Drew still not trusting his receivers. I disagree, Gavin, with the caveat that I don't know the shots he turned down, because unfortunately our viewing angle of most plays is about as big as the boxes Nate and I are in right now. I would love to see more safeties on the screen. I would love that. I have a suspicion that part of the reason safeties aren't paid as much in the NFL is just that they're never on screen. Not really, but that, it's a frustration when you are the backup quarterback and it's 42-6 or 3 or whatever. The defense isn't running the game plan anymore. They are running their base stuff. It's over. So you're getting more looks you're expecting. You're getting easier coverages, and you're playing against a team that gave up. Like, I'm not saying that it, in the sense of they know the game is over. They're playing for pride now. The intensity, the focus, the everything is gone when the backups are coming in and they're still slinging it. So it's a different game. But I don't want to take that away from Beau Pribula. I don't want to take away the fact that he was on time. His passes were precise. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Nate, you nailed it. Like, those were excellent throws from Beau Pribula, a guy that people were expecting when he comes in that he's just a running quarterback. They just use him to get the offense to kind of bridge the gap to what Andy Kotelnicki tries to run. That's why he's in the game, because he's the other half of Drew that Drew is not as a runner.
I would be interested to see. Well, it's fine.
You want to come over and watch film tomorrow? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. This was a very different experience, a different perspective. Not many in-person games that I have missed over 20 years, but this one.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you guys being able to see everything on the field.
Yeah, you would be much more benefited by it than I am, but still, there are things that you see that you otherwise wouldn't. So, yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah. So a couple other things that I thought from this game that are still, I don't want to make this like, hey, what's wrong when they won 49-10? But there were a couple 3 and outs, or a 4 and out and a 3 and out in the first half. And the general methodical nature of this offense, the trick plays aren't working. They obviously, the ones that work great, but the volume of them, this is a thing that I'm kind of coming to, like, literally in the middle of the sentence. When you run trick plays in this offense, is it a volume game? Like, you're a volume shooter, Nate? I keep thinking a lot about basketball lately, of, kind of the skill positions on offense in football having a role and having to execute those roles. trick plays? Is this a volume game for Andy Kotelnicki where we're going to run a reverse? It's not going to work, but then we're going to get the Tyler Warren pass back for a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that the kid helped. I can't remember the defensive end who made a play on Tyzier Denmark's reverse. I thought a play could have been there if Tyzier beats him. I don't know. I mean, I think that certainly he would probably argue, Kotelnicki would argue that there is some setting up that is part of all of that, right? There's an intention of using some of those looks to come back to them later and having more success later than you have on the front end. And, but yes, there has not been a game, I don't think, where they've abandoned the window dressing. They don't. That's just not what they do. No. That's not their identity. Their identity is to put up. I mean, none of this should be a surprise to anybody, including us. His Dairy Queen Blizzard speech laid it all out, right? It's all there for you. And so from the snap to what actually happens, that is a lot of vanilla ice cream. He's just got tons of nerds and Skittles and Snickers.
Who likes sugary candy in their Blizzard?
All the sugary candy. Yeah, there's no healthy food in
Blizzard. But you got to go some form of chocolate. I don't understand people who want to put Skittles in their ice cream. That seems like a serial killer sort of thing to do. It's sweet already. Like, I get berry, like if you got some berry flavors, and I guess that's what Skittles are in this situation. Listen, the part that you didn't hear on that answer is he's like, so what do you like in your Blizzard? And I said toffee, and he's like, yeah, you're the one or Heath, and he's like, yeah, you're the one person in America that likes toffee. The idea of putting Skittles,
that's not nice, Andy.
I thought it was funny.
Toffee's great.
Yeah, especially when it's covered in chocolate. Anyway, we're getting away from the point here.
I'm ruining your show. This is the last time I'm going to be on this show. I love it.
No, I appreciate this because here's the thing. Here's a blowout, and we need to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Okay, so peanut butter parfait. My mom used to get the peanut butter parfait at Dairy Queen all the time. I grew up, and I was just mystified of why any person would want full nuts in... That's going to sound wrong. Full peanuts in their parfait, like in their ice cream. Because they just sprinkle them on the top. Now, Sean is saying light on the peanuts. Yeah, my mom asked for extra peanuts, which I thought was crazy. Corey Smith looked good.
Yeah.
There's something there from Corey Smith. Not just that he had that big run last week. He consistently, Nate, shows great vision and patience as a runner. I'm excited to see him go through a full offseason and become a Big Ten running back.
Yeah, put some pounds on. Quentin Martin, I don't think that the hype has stopped. He just has to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think, the usage, like Nick Singleton had 7 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Katron had 6 for 20, had an 11-yard, right? They're just, you had Warren had 3 carries. Pribula had 5, Nick 7, Corey 8, Drew 4. That's a bunch of guys touching the football, none of which is a steady diet, right? I don't know how any of those guys really get rolling when they only touch the ball, intermittently the way that they do.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I started the show with is the traditional run game up the middle was not going to be an option from a formational and schematic standpoint. You saw, I texted Landon, a friend of ours, Landon Tangwall. If you haven't checked out the Tailgate Show, you should check out the Tailgate Show. I said to him, I'm like, are they afraid of the pass rush here or something? Like, why are they running laterally? Why are they doing everything to the side? And that's part of it. Schematically, they gum up the middle between the tackles, so you can't run up the middle. So outside zone, which is what Nick Singleton has been churning lately. You got to do some things with quarterback option to make that viable, and then you run into the roadblock of, well, you're doing that with Drew Allar. And he actually kept the ball, right? So he kept the ball and made a play with his feet. By the way, that run where he broke the pocket and broke 2 tackles, that is the first time I will say that looked like Josh Allen.
Oh, here we go.
That looked like Josh Allen. Wildly uncoordinated, running through linebackers. Now just do it at the NFL level at twice the speed, and then you got Josh Allen. But like when you want to compare Drew Allar to Josh Allen, which happened early in his career, and I'm like, guys, he's definitely not Josh Allen. You start doing stuff like that, creating outside the scheme, that was more like Josh Allen. But he did enough in this game from that perspective.
Drew live. Let him be Drew. Doesn't have to be somebody else. Just let him be. Let him do his thing.
Yeah.
He's winning football games.
Here's the thing. He does not have a good NFL comp. So any quarterback will do. Here's one, Tom Brady. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no
we got Tom Brady earlier this year. Lambda here in chat says he looks like Big Ben to me. And sure, that one is a fine comparison. But any quarterback that is slow, and I'm sorry, modern standards apply here. Drew is not a fast NFL quarterback. And again, we're saying comparing him to NFL quarterbacks. So sure, you want Big Ben? Sure. I think Matthew Stafford. I think that's a good one. He's going to primarily play from the pocket. He'll break, he'll throw. He's got an elite arm, generational arm. But if you're a Steelers fan, you want it to be Ben Roethlisberger. If you're a Ravens fan, maybe you'll say Joe Flacco. And maybe if, Drew Lock is in there somewhere. I don't know. There's you pick your quarterback and he can be any of them you want.
Is Byron Leftwich an option? Is that?
Huh. Yeah.
I think Byron was a little bit thicker.
He's a lefty, so everyone would be like, well, that's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's a fair one. Pocket passer, but he scrambled a little bit, right? He was pretty mobile.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Come on.
Yeah. Any pocket quarterback. The other thing I was surprised in this, looking at the post-game stats, is that Purdue had 300 total yards in this game.
Mm-hmm.
What? I guess that's where you come out of this game.
How
it was
did
a
that
dominant
happen?
performance.
Yeah.
Right. And then you look down and you're like 300 yards. That didn't feel like that. Here's how that happened, Nate. Penn State goes up, I think it was 21-0. And then they start putting in the backups like we talked about. Celebrity appearances was what we were talking about. Get these guys a lot of plays and then get the backups in early in the game. They tried to do that. And then almost immediately Purdue gets a 17-yard run. They start pushing down the field and they set up for a field goal. Then the starters come back in because I think that speaks to the depth of this team, Nate, where it just isn't the same place it has been maybe in previous years, that you can put those guys in and play them at this time of the year. Not to say those are bad players. They're just not ready yet.
Yeah, they have sustained losses through the course of the season that have shown up and continue to show. All right. I mean, Tom Allen was talking about it on the Thursday radio show, just how impactful losing KJ Winston was to what their intention was. They planned for 8 months, this defense, about KJ Winston being like the heart of it. And he's gone. He's not there, right? They've had guys in and out at linebacker. They've had guys in and out on the defensive line. You name it. It's been a lot of that. And I think that, especially looking at the secondary, I think that it is a year away type of situation, right? Where as those guys continue to develop, you get them a little bit more comfortable, but they just don't have the communication. They don't have the on-field awareness, right? It's not a lack of talent or a lack of athleticism. Those guys can all play.
You saw Dejon Lane. You saw Dejon Lane. You saw the talent and why they're very excited about him with that PBU coming from off screen, which was awesome. Yep. But then you also saw him reacting and not reading, where he's running at where the receiver is and not anticipating where the receiver is going on an out route where I think they either completed or the ball went over the guy's head. I don't exactly remember. I just remember watching Dejon Lane, which looked like he was rotating down into man coverage and ran essentially the wrong way because he didn't know yet that, okay, in this situation, I should expect an out route. He was running to the stem instead of where it was going. Those are the little things of, we kind of saw this a little bit earlier in the season. He made a couple really good plays against Kent State, and then the Illinois game, we don't see him. There was one play he came in, and they've got a very short leash on these guys, where Lane came in, there was a confusion on a run fill, and suddenly we didn't see him again in the rest of the game. I think it was against Washington or the game before Ohio State. One of the two. I apologize. I can't remember these things specifically. I just remember seeing it. And then in this game, you kind of saw him work through some of those mistakes of, oops, long run, because somebody didn't fill a run gap or they took a bad angle. And then suddenly like a pass breakup or a tackle for loss, or he's in the backfield and he's chasing down the quarterback for, a pressure on a scramble. It's there. It's just not consistent yet. And I think that is, I know that we're in the final two games of the season now, but it is very clear to me he's not in the plan for the postseason. Like that, they wanted to get him in, but it's just not going to happen this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably right. These are the guys that they got. It's Jalen and it's Zaki, and you're riding them. You're going to ride those guys through the playoff and through the rest of the season. But it is. I don't think it is a bad thing for Penn State to have these 3 games and this type of schedule to close the season. In a lot of ways, there should be opportunity and ability to have consequence-free mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is, a big thing. That's a valuable tool to have. It's valuable to rest up the guys that have been playing all season, the guys that have the heavy reps. It's just a matter of Penn State needs to do to these teams what they just did to Purdue. They did exactly to Purdue what Purdue deserved to have done to them.
Yes.
And so now it's a matter
not
of
morally, but football morally, right?
Get it done.
I would agree.
Yeah. So you got to do that again next week, and then you got to finish out the season against Maryland. There is no part of this conversation that overlooks the reality of they got to win, right? This team is not getting into the playoff at 10-2 if they lose either of the next 2 games. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to get in. So they have to win the game. But if they are playing at their best, if this team is actually, the trajectory is upward and they're getting better as the season goes along, and it seems like they are, then there should be an opportunity there down the home stretch.
Yeah. A couple things here in the chat. Jim says Byron Leftwich wasn't a lefty. That's embarrassing. I think I combine Mark Brunell and Byron Leftwich in my mind. Not that I don't know that they're 2 separate people, but that I was conjuring Jaguars quarterback from the early 2000s, late 90s, and I just kind of copy and pasted Mark Brunell's throwing motion onto Byron Leftwich. So that's bad on me. And then Virginia Slim says Alex Birchmeier never got in. He did get in on the final drive. I believe it was the final drive. He played right guard. It was not great from what I saw. So your question or your comment is not off the mark as to the fact that he didn't get in, but what I saw wasn't necessarily encouraging, because Nate, whenever I see an offensive lineman on the ground, and that's how I noticed him, that's always a red flag. Now, in fairness to Alex, I don't know how that happened. He might have been tripped, but they were rolling one way and suddenly he was on the ground. So generally it's been kind of a slow learning curve for Birchmeier here at Penn State. Anyway, I don't want to draw too much attention to that, but I just want to make sure we're talking to people in chat, because everyone that's here is super awesome. 49-10, and we've got nearly 400 people hanging out with us on a post-game show at 8:00 at night on a Saturday in November. You guys are the stars here, so thank you very much. But I do have to ask just one more thing of you. Please like this video, and if you have not yet, subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, because I'm very proud of the job we do. I think that we do I think that our coverage, our conversation, our presentation is the best, not just in the Penn State football beat, in college football, period. For what we work with and how we do it, it's the best. But we can't get there from a recognition standpoint without you. By subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the video, and helping us fight back against the almighty algorithm, because we don't do lowest common denominator content. I don't put out videos with thumbnails of like Franklin fired. So we don't get all of those kind of people. But there are a lot of smart football fans that want to talk about Penn State. Bring them into the fold, and the best way you do that is liking the video. Nate, any other thoughts about the defense or any of the things that you saw from that side of the ball today? Because that's the part I have to pick and choose when I'm watching my film during the game. And this week I was picking the offense because it was much different than I expected and had to go back and figure it all out. So I don't have a great feel on the defense. Was there anything from the D-line or the secondary that you thought stands out to you that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, two things. This is salt in the wound territory, so I apologize in advance, Penn State fans. Penn State got itself a goal line stand.
There you go.
That's something. That's not nothing. And then on top of that, 85 yards rushing, right? And not mitigated or offset by a bunch of sacks. So the fact that Penn State again, right? If you can't run the ball on this team, you don't have a chance. And most teams have not been able to run the ball. So.
Yeah, much better against the run. There was obviously a couple of leaks there early, but like we said, the conversation, I think it was the first play was for 8 yards. The first run was for 8 yards. Crack back on Tony Rojas was a not something I had in my bingo card, but then after that, it was pretty much locked down until the second string came in.
Can you sorry to interrupt. Can you educate me as to the really getting vocal crowd kind of criticizing Tony Rojas, like where that's coming from and like where you think he is on that trajectory? Because it doesn't really align with the internal sentiment.
Yeah, no, this is the exact conversation after every single game. Like you have we're playing the hits now on the postgame show. So this is where I struggle, because I do believe he was injured at some point this year and playing through it. And at some point, that doesn't matter. Nick Singleton's been playing banged up. Anthony Donko has been playing banged up and been effective. So there are certain things you have to understand. And James Franklin talked about Tony and basically said he had to be better. You know, I think did you say that on the show, or somebody said that this week after James Franklin's comments on Wednesday night? So I have been staunchly defending Tony Rojas as this is not what it seems. He's always better on film review than he seems live. But because he misses tackles, and he's consistently missing tackles each game, and they're on television, like his mistakes are not off ball. I don't know. He didn't fill the gap properly. He's there. He's making the play mentally to be in position and then not making the play. So he's visibly on camera. It's not like everyone's looking around wondering what happened. Yep. Tony is there and not making tackles. And so there is this perception that he doesn't have instincts or that he's soft or any of these things. I don't think that's the case. I just think that, whatever it is causing him to miss the close of the play is the issue. And so I would love to say, yeah, he's banged up. It's obvious. But at this point, does it even matter? Because you have to produce, and they're going into a season where people are going to target him and attack him if he continues to be a weakness in the run defense.
What is the proportion of, and this, I'm sure the PFF follows all of this, but what's the proportion of anecdotal, I saw this play, I was watching this play, he missed the play, versus that was a normal 3-yard run with a normal tackle from a normal outside linebacker that doesn't win awards and isn't flashy, but just happened, right? I mean, he's fifth in tackles. It's not like there's this massive drop off. It doesn't seem to me. And so
this is the part where, so he's not playing well, to answer your question, but he's not Brandon Smith Lambda. This is the part where I'm drawing the line. and Lambda is in the chat for people listening on the podcast. Tony Rojas got a bit of Brandon Smith in him. That's not what's happening.
How
Brandon
dare
Smith,
you?
Brandon Smith did not have football instincts, and in the sense that he didn't recognize where the play was going, or he was just super slow to process everything. And he was always out of position. This is the part I'm saying is Tony's in position. He knows what's coming and he attacks it. If there's a thing that's happening right now, it's doubt. It's not that he is looking around not knowing what he's seeing. Brandon Smith did not have the instincts in coverage or as a football player in the run game that Tony Rojas has, but it's not translating. This is the most frustrating thing, Nate. It's because, like when I'm watching the film and I'm like, okay, he's there. Like he's in his gap. He's in his gap. Make the play, Tony. Don't make me defend. And then, he misses another tackle. To your answer, to your question, he has missed 27% of his tackles this year. That is alarmingly high. There's no way around that. His run defense, I think, is better than he's given credit for. But if you don't make the play and, X, Y, and Z happens, then, there's no understanding here. You just didn't make the play. So, yeah, it's not translating. Okay, and Lambda does qualify here. He says doesn't break down and misses too many tackles. Yes, I would agree with that. But I've seen him do it, and I never saw Brandon Smith really do it. So, yeah, I'm hopeful for his future. That hasn't changed. I still think he's going to be a great football player, but clearly the translation from small sample size or early in the year to now has not translated.
Okay.
Well, thanks. I know I tend to monologue and then pass it off to you. And thinking during that time, you've thought of something to say. Certainly somebody's thought of something to say.
I think that Tony Rojas has a lot of internal optimism for what his potential is. Put it that way, right?
Yeah.
This does not feel like oh man, it's not like a Tyler Elsdon, right? Like where Tyler played very early in his career. He was right out of the gates and contributed, I think, during that 2020 year. And as things went along, right? I mean, he was a starter at one point, and as things went along, and now he's hurt. So it's not like I just get very touchy about feeling like he's being picked on. But I don't think, right? It seems like with the Elsdon conversation, and obviously they're playing different positions, but with the Elsdon conversation, it's like, hey, there's a limitation there's a ceiling here in terms of what you can expect. With Rojas, there are the tools, there are the pieces in place, and the know-how to I think get there. It's just a matter of doing it. And again, I mean, this kind of repeats what James said on Wednesday night, but there's a difference between being a spot player as a freshman who nobody really knows what you are or who you are.
Yeah.
Being able to make some plays, having the opportunities and taking advantage of them versus being an every down player. And there's a learning curve to that. And on top of the fact that obviously he has dealt with some things at different periods of the season.
And I think part of the conversation, it's not an answer now. I want to be clear, but changing defense from, as much as you want to keep it the same, changing from Manny Diaz to Tom Allen has created, I think early in the year, Kobe King was a little slow to get going. Tony Rojas has not really recovered from that start and not played as fast from an execution standpoint. It feels like at times, I think Gavin here in the chat said that, he's overrunning some plays. And I think that's probably a fair criticism of Tony so far this year. But I've been wondering, you got a great answer from Manny Diaz back in the day about like, we run a one gap system. Nobody is reading and trying to play two gaps. I don't know that that's true anymore. I watch the way Kobe King plays, and I think he is, they don't have a strict policy of one person, one gap. And, when you have that, it is a bit simpler, right? Where I've got, whatever happens on the play, I need to be in the A gap. or I need to be in the B gap. Doesn't matter, what the other team does. I do this. And there has been a little bit more of that, which then they adjust at halftime, and they're very good. But it hasn't been, I think, as clean throughout. And part of that domination of not being, beginning to end of games as dominant on defense, that might be part of it. Like 9 tackles for loss in this game is good, but I think last year they might have had 14 in this game.
Yeah. No, and again, that is that not part of that sharp move from KJ, his impact of this went from an offensive defense to a defensive defense, right? Where the aggressiveness side of it had to take a step back. There had to be a part of that of not allowing, right? You are preventing worst case scenario more than you are forcing best case scenario or trying for best case scenario. But again, I mean, it's like nobody's torched these guys for the most part, right? Like nobody's really done. I mean, even Ohio State, which is offense is very good, obviously, nobody's done that to these guys. So they still seem to me to have a fairly winning strategy defensively.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like again, but I think we just talked about generally Manny Diaz being just a different level than most coordinators in a lot of different ways, like from aggression to scheme to style to the way he was perceived even. And not to say that this is wrong with Tom Allen, but there are guys who are special and then there are guys who are great. I don't want to do the good, great to elite, whatever. But I just think that generally that this is a very good defense and people have expectations of what was from last year. Only a few minutes left here on the Penn State post-game show, the Labatt Postgame Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Nate Bauer here. We're going to transition over into previewing the final 2 games. Before that, though, James Franklin's press conference from Greg Pickles out. He's gathering all this information. He's also going to do an instant analysis by himself. So, anytime, I just want to give Greg credit for doing all of these things, basically being a juggler, except that he's juggling microphones and recordings and all the other stuff. So check all that out on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel once we're done here in a second. Minnesota has a good defense. Penn State's going to be on the road. I think this is going to be a good test. It is not. The last 2 weeks I've said Penn State has to blow out the team that they're playing for this to be a game that is acceptable, in terms of what the outcome should be. I've done a little advanced scouting in Minnesota. I like their defensive style. They play man and zone. They're able to do some advanced concepts. So I think this will be a challenge for Penn State. Is it a trap game, Nate? I'm just going to ask you the low-hanging fruit question.
I don't think so. Put it this way. I don't think anybody internally, and I think even there's a difference between outside perception and certainly inside perception. And I don't think anybody looks at Minnesota the same way they look at Purdue. Right. Just bottom line, they're just in different spots. This is a Minnesota team that has had some success this season. They've won a bunch of closer style games. I mean, I'm looking at the heart of their Big Ten schedule. First of all, they got kind of robbed at Michigan. There was a little bit of controversy at the end of that game. They lost by 3 points. They beat Southern Cal by a touchdown. They beat UCLA by 4 points. They waxed Maryland at home, and then they beat Illinois by a touchdown, basically. Then they lost to all of these games. There's commonality here, right? Which is these are mid-20 scoring games, right? They have not allowed much defensively, but also Minnesota total offense 110th nationally, rushing offense 119th nationally.
They actually throw the ball.
They weird. Kind of. They have the 69th ranked passing offense. 65th. Listen,
it's a low bar from what I'm used to watching of the Kirk Shiraka era Minnesota Golden Gophers. This offense at least will throw the football, and they The only offense that's played more 6 offensive linemen than Andy Kotelnicki was that offense, which was their base package, and that was hard to watch.
My general rule, and I'm not, very smart, but teams that are entirely one-dimensional, teams that pose no threat to run the ball effectively and efficiently, are the teams that Penn State tends to do pretty well against, right? Like, because it's coming. Right? If you can play straight up and completely stop their running game, you don't need extra guys to stop that. You don't need to devote resources to stopping the running game. I think Penn State has the type of athletes and players that can withstand that in the passing game. It's just, is this a Penn State offense that can score 28 points against a good defense?
Good defense.
A good defense. Can they do that? I'm not going to believe. I'm not going to pound the table for this Penn State offense this season. It's just not going to happen until they do it against somebody with a pulse. And they really have not.
Here's the thing I want to see, and this is the thing I'm frustrated about with just the way this offense operates. And I respect Andy Kotelnicki, his scheme, his style. I respect that that's their identity, right? But when they hit bleep it and start throwing in the drop back passing game and give Drew some more opportunities, he threw 19 times today. Like, if he throws 27 times and you give him more routes with more than 3 options, and it's not all play action and RPO, I feel like that's where we're talking about the receivers and we're talking about the quarterback, and he's not throwing it deep. And it's like, how many opportunities does he have to throw the ball more than 7 yards down the field when a lot of this is schematically tailored? And this is one of the things I talked about. Like, designer offense doesn't mean that it's a great passing offense. It means that you can put anybody back there, including a tight end, and they can throw balls to open receivers. But when you got a generationally good quarterback and you're in that environment ecosystem part of the time, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now it's the passing portion of the offense. And it just feels like they don't give that part in this game where I thought they should have. Now, they were correct, and Purdue didn't play sticky man coverage all game, but that's where I'm frustrated. It's like the end of the USC game when it hit the fan and they were down and they had to throw, they could throw. That was not a good defense. But still, this was not a good defense. And it just felt like we're playing to win the game a certain way, and we're not doing things that are systematically going to get to the quickest outcome, which is throw the ball 20 yards down the field several times to receivers and then score a touchdown. It's always like, we're going to run the offense, and the offense has to do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll throw the football. And that has been my biggest push and pull with this offensive. I just want them to hit the gas at some point, but that's not what they do. And so, like, I think that's a stylistic thing as much as it is in a schematic thing of good and bad. It's just all preference. And I like throwing the football. I had that conversation with Landon today. He's like, you need to run the ball. And I'm like, I like throwing the football. Can we do that more? That would be fun to watch on TV.
I think that two things. One, Drew threw the ball 19 times in 3.5 quarters. 3 quarters of football.
Right.
2.5 quarters of football is what I meant to say. So that skews the numbers a little bit, right? You're not in that type of a game. Were there more opportunities in the first half? Sure, I think so. But it kind of is what it is. There is a sentiment of that I'm not sure I can disagree with based on the results this season. Of you're talking about, okay, you fire the ball 20 yards downfield, right? That passing game, your past attempts exceeding 15 yards down the field.
Yeah.
What is the success rate of that
Mm-hmm.
versus your success rate of throwing the ball to Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and Tyler Warren, or handing the ball off to any of those 3 within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage,
right?
And that player with the ball in his hands taking it forward. I feel like I'm like describing.
You're trying to just define running the football.
You catch the football. It's an oblong. And so
Right.
like what is the consistency of that? What do you feel better about? And I just
Allar's completed over 50% of his deep passes this year. So he has been accurate when he's thrown the football. It has not been superstar level deep passing. I just want to be clear. Like, there has not been the stuff that, like, if he was Nate, we would be talking about him as a Heisman candidate sort of situation. That has been an area where it's been a work in progress, but it has not been receiving. And I'm not even talking about the chuck it deep is here again from Asher. I'm not even talking about chuck it deep. I'm talking about the progression passing game where you involve the receivers and it's not a play action to Tyler Warren specifically. It is the quarterback reads the defense and throws the football, where like he does that on third down. There are some shot plays he does that, but there are not. It's not a central part of the game plan. The game plan is, as you pointed out, get the ball to Nick Singleton and Tyler Warren and Katron Allen. And I understand those are the best players and you should do that. And this is to beat any team and to play any style. They need to be able to do that. And this was, in my mind, this game and the last game were opportunities to work on the drop back passing game. And they kind of did that against Washington. They didn't do it today. And I guess that's the part of fix or develop. If you're not investing in those plays and calling those plays and designing the game plan around those plays, you won't run those plays. Like that's where part of this conversation lies, is in the intent. And there's not an intent to consistently do that. They won 49-10. So we are having a conversation about things that don't matter, but it is what people are noticing and talking about this offense, where it still feels like, they don't have it. Well, to me, that is part of it.
They threw 27 passes tonight. This is my count. 5 were directed toward receivers.
Yeah.
They had 5 targets to receiver. Trey had 2, caught both, 54 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the 46-yarder was the bulk of right. But I mean, look at this. Without that 46-yard touchdown, you are talking about 1 catch for 2 yards to Omari. Ivy had a target that he didn't catch, and Tyzier had a target that he didn't catch. So
2 catches. One catch for 2 yards, 1 catch for 6, in an underneath coverage on second down. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there was 1 pass like down the field.
Right.
To pick up yards that were not single digits.
Nate, you know what I love about when you're on the show, and like we go off the rails so much in so many different ways. Like I just looked up like, oh no, it's been an hour. We're done now. So final thoughts about this game, nutshell it the best way that Nate Bauer does for us, and we'll get out of here on that.
I thought you were going to say, I love when you're on the show with me because it makes me feel so good about myself.
Well, I genuinely enjoy your company, and you know that.
I
just
kidding.
Figure out everyone get all embarrassed because, men being appreciative of each other in public is always uncomfortable. But anyway.
How do I feel about this game? I'm not outside of the ecosystem of Penn State fan paranoia at this point, right? We're not in the same sphere, but we run concurrent to each other. There's an overlap, right? Frank, we described this week. We are not fans. We are observers of the program. We are reporting on it. We are trying to present you guys with the best information that we can without bias. However, everybody has seen this show, right? You've been watching for 10 years. And so when it comes to games like this, that Penn State should win on the road, you think, they're going to win the game. They have an excellent track record of doing so. But you still have to go do it. And there have been times in the narrative arc of Penn State football over the last decade where they haven't. And so now it's just like, hey, we as much as anybody else, as much as fans, as much as players as much as coaches are ready for the narrative to change. We're ready for a change in the story, right? To just do something else. And that something else is a berth in the expanded playoff. To see Penn State get to that point, to not finish just short, which again, it is overwhelmingly clear that Penn State will not get there if they do not win the next 2 games after this game, right?
Yep.
Step 1 of 3 has been accomplished. All of the other stuff, right? That I mean, I'm reading the chat like you are, talking about Ohio State trying to lose to Indiana, right? There's just so many scenarios that can play themselves out over the next couple of weeks that can still play themselves out tonight. Oregon plays Wisconsin tonight. I have no idea what the score is of that game. But point being, there is a lot that can happen outside of Penn State's control, but the things that are within Penn State's control are very manageable from here on out.
Yeah. When they lost, when they won at USC, we had the conversation of, did that lock in the playoff? And that kind of feels the way it is.
Yep.
Given they have to do that here to end the season, winning these final 2 games in which they're favored. That tricky spot on the road in LA, the first time you've gone there. We've seen Penn State in tricky spots on the road not be successful in the past, and they passed that test. They found a way to win, like I said here on the show, with the passing game at the end. And they showed that development, that growth, that ability to expand when down. And I didn't think this offense could win when down, given the way it came into the season and Andy Kolnicki's reputation with the run game and all the things we saw tonight. But they did, and now they sit on the precipice of being in the first ever expanded playoff. And I agree with you. I like to see new things. I like to watch cool stuff. I like good football. And generally, that's what you get from Penn State football. I'd like to see them play some new, cool, good teams where players aren't opting out for a bowl game. That'll do it for us tonight. Again, James Franklin's press conference probably already up. You can go watch that right now. I will now release you from class. We'll have back in session tomorrow, full film study at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Nate is going to have his reactions to the game. Fitz is going to have his, I apologize, initial thoughts, first impressions. Yeah, his impressions after the game. That's coming up all at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Great time to sign up. We'll see you there, and we'll talk to you later.